The Peeping Dogman, a Midwest Dogman story. Dear Scary Stories NYC. When I was a kid, and we're talking some time back in the 1970s, I used to sleep in the basement of our family's house. For a while it was great, but then this really weird dog started hanging around our basement window and paying too much attention to me while I tried to sleep at night. It took me a pretty long time before I figured out that this was actually a dogman outside my window. Supposedly we had lived in several apartments first, but the only place I remember living when I was very young was this house we rented from a great uncle who I don't think I ever met. It was on the poor side of town, but within walking distance of a couple of supermarkets. The side and the back were right up against an untamed bit of woodland, which we weren't allowed to go in without our mother or some other guardian. My father at the time was a traveling something or other, and we usually only saw him 3 or 4 times a year. Mom seemed happier when he was around, but me and my sister often got left with neighbors or relatives during those periods, so I never really liked it when he would deign to visit us, and I never really got to know him that well in those days. The only time I remember him showing up for one of my birthdays, he made a big deal that my sister and I shouldn't be sharing the basement any longer. I think I had turned 11 and she was 8 or 9. My father, who was almost never there, told my mother to move her bedroom and my sister's up to the top floor and let me have the basement as my own apartment. This way, he announced, I would be able to practice learning how to be a man. That was the way he put it. The only thing he taught me about how to be a man was how to stay on the road away from your family as much as possible. At any rate, he was the reason I was completely alone in the basement when that strange dog creature started coming around and staring in the window at me. At first, I thought it was a dog, as in, just a regular dog. I started noticing weird things about it, though. The front legs were not regular dog legs, for one thing. They were sort of more like human arms, to be honest. It would kind of do push-ups with its face in the window, and it would need to get really low to the ground to look in at me. See, the bottom of that window on the outside was flush with the ground, or maybe an inch above it. I think it used to be like 5 or 6 inches above the ground when the place was first built, but by the time we were there, the house had settled and the land had built up a bit. So there was a really big canine, basically lying on its belly, peeping in at me as I slept. Although the window was right on ground level on the outside, it was right up near the ceiling when I was inside the room. I would have to look up to look out of it. I'm not talking about a conventionally shaped window either. This was a wider than tall window, sort of shaped like a modern computer or TV screen, but not very large. It was maybe 1 foot tall by 14 or 16 inches wide, When the dog got up close, its face could fill that entire window, and then some. In my memory, the window was something like 10 feet off the ground, but everything is larger in our childhood memories. I remember my mother complaining that she never liked to put curtains on that window, because she'd have to go get the step stool just to reach up there. So it was definitely high off the floor. I'm sure it wasn't 10 feet, but maybe it was 7 feet. I don't know, 6.5 to 7.5 feet. I'm not really sure, but since it looked out on the forest, and no people ever walked over there that we knew of, it had never become a priority to put a curtain or shades up in that tiny little window. It didn't even slide up or down. The only thing you could do with it was sort of pull the top part in and push the bottom part out a little. It was made to tilt on its central axis so you could let in some air into the basement without creating a large enough opening for a burglar to crawl into. Sometimes that big dog would stick its giant nose right up into the tiny opening and snuffle and wuzzle up there like an asthmatic, trying to catch the different odors going on inside my basement room. I had 2 ways I could see the creature when it was at the window. I could see a reflection of it in a mirror when I was lying in a certain position in bed, And I could also go and stand across the room from it on top of the lazy boy recliner. I could see it pretty directly from there. Sometimes we would stare at each other for a while until I would either get sleepy and go to bed, or the dog would apparently just have had enough and get up and run off suddenly. When it stood up, I could briefly see its torso and chest, which were more humanoid than a dog's chest usually looked to me. It also had these pimples, but the pimples were evenly spaced. It looked like aliens had placed a grid over its belly to make the pimples appear in a grid. Then one day we were visiting a family friend, and their old female Labrador came over for pets. At one point she got excited and stood up, and I noticed that she also had that grid of pimples on her underside, like 2 rows of 5 of them, from the chest down to pretty far below. I asked the lady and my mom about the dog's pimple grid, and they thought that was extremely funny. Those weren't pimples on a grid, those were nipples. It was the way a mommy dog fed her baby dogs. Those nipples used to give milk when this dog was younger. So I was being stalked by a large female dog of some kind. It struck me like a bolt of lightning. The canine I had been seeing was so large that the idea it might have been female just never occurred to me. For some reason, this made everything far worse in my mind, although I couldn't really explain to myself why. I badgered my mother to get a curtain or covering for the window, and I climbed up there to place hardcover books in front of it in the meantime. I didn't want anything looking in that window any longer, but even more than that, I didn't want to be able to look out from there either. Well, I know I was hoping that was going to be the end of this female dogman story. I really had hoped to get out of it without ever having to admit the truth of it to anyone. I wanted to know I had survived the ordeal without ever having had to tell anyone what I had been having to deal with. My family was not rich, but I knew my mother would find a way to pay for me to see a shrink if it got out that I was seeing werewolves and monsters staring in at me at night. I knew that my schoolmates would hear about it too. I knew that my life would become a living hell if one single word got out to any person that I was being stalked by a big, hairy, fang-faced female dogman. I wanted it to go away, and yet, it did the opposite, at least for a little while. At first, after covering my window over, wherever I went, I would see that grid pattern, her doggy nipples. I would see them, and then realize she was standing in the woods and spying on me. As soon as I turned my head to focus on her, she'd race behind a rock or a tree. One time I was even in a public park, and I thought I caught sight of the dogman mother out of the corner of my eye. That time disturbed me greatly. Either it meant that the dogman woman was now willing to venture into human settlements just to get close to me, or it demonstrated that I was becoming so stressed out that I was beginning to imagine things. In either case, that one really made me want to give up. I felt so sad, and I wished I had someone to share my misery with. But then, my father called for us. He had gotten us a smaller house but in a nicer area, and we moved eastward, out of the Midwest entirely. Sometimes I think back on that giant female dogman, her eyes glowing as she stared into my bedroom at night. She was the first woman that ever obsessed over me, even if she really was thinking of me as a midnight snack in reality. She kinda helped shape my fear of predatory women. And trust me, there are a lot of those out here in the East. I mean, it might sound pretty crazy to say, but I think I learned a lot about the female gender through my early experiences with the Peeping Dogman. Ladies, are you having trouble getting people to respect your right of way while jogging? Perhaps your sports bra just isn't vicious enough. Try wearing this new vicious Dogman sports bra and watch all the pedestrians rush to get out of your way while you jog. You'll be queen of the road in your all new vicious Dogman sports bra, the link to which is in the description of this very video. Use discount code SEPT2022 in order to get 20% discount of your purchase between now and October 1st. We would like to honor and thank Valerie Gomez, aka Nicole Gomez, for her recent super thanks to us with the following limerick. Thank you for your kind donation to aid us in our recreation of Tales of Dogman executing his plan of scaring our entire nation. If you would like to inspire doggerel poetry just like that and join the annals of the greats like Valerie Gomez aka Nicole Gomez, then you too can donate to us using either our PayPal link in the video info or by doing what Valerie Gomez aka Nicole Gomez did and clicking that thanks button located under each of our videos here on YouTube. There are other ways you can help us stay online in these inflationary times, and even cool perks you can get in return, like secret episodes. To find out all about that entire subculture of our channel, listen to our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman, as he explains it all to us. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.